Hi, this is a video about getting SC356 running again. This is an intro recorded after the fact. The car is running again, and I could have made my life really easy, but as usual I was thinking too complicated and turned something that would have been easy into something a lot more complicated. So there's also some diagnosing going on that might be of interest to you, and I hope this will help. At the moment I'm standing next to SC356, which decided not to run anymore. I already suspect the fuel pump, but I thought I'll give you some pointers how to check what's wrong with the car and how to identify the fuel pump as the culprit. This will be in comparison with SC377, just to show you some things you can test, how they are on this car and how they should be shown on the other car. Okay, the usual suspects if a car isn't running are spark, compression and fuel. And I'm testing for spark first. What you can do is either remove this elbow and spray the solvent in there, like starter spray, or sometimes I do it with brake cleaner. Or you pull a spark plug out with the wire attached and touch something ground, like the engine or so, with the thread, and look if you have a spark there. Or what I usually do is using a timing light. And I hope I have this pointed reasonably well at the camera. I'm going to try if I see a spark. So, I would have expected a bit more enthusiasm from the timing light. I assume that this is because the battery is pretty empty, and I did see some flashes. Maybe the starter RPMs are too low and it doesn't fire properly or not as often. So I'll try the starter spray now and see how that works. I would consider this confirmation that there's a spark. So this is now confirmed working. Next step would be compression maybe, but I know that the compression was reasonably good before the car stopped running, and of course there's nothing happening to the head while it's sitting. So this should be still okay. So the next thing would be fuel pressure. Okay. So the fuel pressure gauge is connected to the fuel rails, and on a 3 liter it should be 3 bar. On a 3.9 it would be 2.5 bar. And what normally happens is the fuel pump is very quick in building up fuel pressure, so you see the pointer going like this within a fraction of a second. And this, as far as I remember, is not moving, so I'm going to verify that again. And we have nothing. So this points to the fuel pressure, fuel pump, or the fuel pump relay. And there is a way to test this. I'm going to get another airflow sensor to show you how. This is the airflow sensor of ST508, and the way it's situated in the car is like this, on the air filter, and the hose connects here. And what you can do, if you look in the front of it, you see a flap. This flap signals the engine that there's airflow and how much, and then in turn moves the potentiometer here and tells the engine under which conditions it's running. I just noticed that somebody had removed the cap of the airflow meter, and I can actually show you how it works. So you have this resistance track in here, and as I move the flap, you can see that this conductor goes across the resistance track, and that's how the engine knows under what condition it's running. So this flap can be moved, and it tricks the car into thinking that there's airflow. So the way this works is you switch on the ignition, and as you move the flap, you should hear the fuel pump running. But here it is not. So what you hear now is I hope this is loud enough on the video. This is the fuel pump relay, or the fuel injection relay, and you can hear it click as I move the flap. What you heard was the fuel pump relay engaging, but you should also have heard fuel running through the lines, and it wasn't. So we're going to do the same test on 377 now, and then you can hear the difference. Okay, ignition is on. I hope this is loud enough to hear on the video, but this is fuel coming from the tank, rushing through the lines. And if you hear that, you know that you have fuel, and we don't have that on the, we have that on 377, but we don't have it on 356. I should mention that running the fuel pump by moving the airflow sensor flap only works on 3 liters, or to be precise, on cars with a catalyst without oxygen sensor. The other cars, the ones with an oxygen sensor, have a different slightly different injection system, and this will not work. The reason I said 3 liters and 3.9 is that roughly at the same time when the 3.9 was introduced, they also introduced the oxygen sensor driven the catalyst with an oxygen sensor, and since it was roughly at the same time as the 3.9 was introduced, I have yet to see a 3.9 with an unregulated catalytic converter, or have to see a 3 liter with one. So for some reason, or out of coincidence, 3 liters typically don't have an oxygen sensor and have this system where it does work to engage the fuel pump by moving the airflow meter flap, and most 3.9s don't. They do have an oxygen sensor and it does not work. Just that you don't start on a 3.9 and wonder why it doesn't work. It can't. So after all this, I would with some confidence say I don't have fuel, I do have spark, and I just postulate that compression hasn't changed over the last 50 miles and over the last months where the car didn't run. So I assume this is okay, and we are now chasing a fuel delivery issue. The next thing will be that I lift the car up in the back and then put 12 volt to the fuel pump and confirm that it doesn't work, because we see that the fuel pump relay is trying to engage, and this should give us 12 volt in the back and fuel pump not running. And I'm going to use an external 12 volt power supply and put the 12 volt to the fuel pump and confirm that it doesn't run. And if that's the case, I'm going to replace the fuel pump, and then hopefully the car should run. Hi. Now that I'm done with the intake, fuel lines and injection valves of 377, I'm now going back to the fuel pump of SC356 just to see if the fuel pump really is the problem. I would be surprised if not, but these cars have surprised me more often than I like to remember. So at the moment I have put it on, put wheel blocks in the front. I have put it, lifted it with the jack, with the hydraulic jack under the differential, and put jack stands left and right under the jacking points. So it should be pretty safe. I still hate to be under a car, but there's no other way around. So I'm going to pull the fuel pump now, and I will not record it because it's straightforward. You are pulling 2 hoses off and loosen 3 nuts, and that's it. So, and then you have the whole thing out, and you can put it on the bench, and then we can go from there. That's of course famous last words. Who knows what I'm going to deal with? Maybe the nuts are rusty, I'll see, and I'll let you know. It turns out I had a used fuel pump bracket on the shelf, so I'm going to refreshen this and build it on the bench, and then just go under the car and exchange it. I just assume at this point that the fuel pump on the car is bad. If it isn't bad, then I'm just gonna have a working fuel pump on the shelf, but I'm pretty sure it's bad. So what we have here, this is the original, one of the last original I have. I'm not going to touch that other than using it as a template. So we have the fuel pump here, we have the fuel damper, the one I was talking about with in the intake video. That's the damper near the fuel pump, fuel filter, and this is where it goes out to the fuel lines to the front. This is out of the tank. That's this weird 90-degree and then bent over the filter. This is the ones I had reproduced. Now I have those because this bend here, if you do that in straight fuel line, will always pinch and you will have drivability problems. This solves that. So I hope that within the next hour or so I'm gonna have a reasonably nice copy of this. As with Opels typically is, as it is typical with Opels, most of the time you can disassemble the car with 10mm, 13, 15 and 17 and sometimes 19. Most of the time these are the only wrenches you ever need. Of course there are always exceptions, but if you have 10, 13, 15, 17, 19, you're in good shape to start. This is running, and this one is obviously not. What do you think? But this is trash, this is trash. So are the old fuel lines. And the rest will be freshened up and used for the new fuel pump assembly. For the filter, this piece was missing, so I have made that out of just standard clamps, shortened it a bit, drilled another hole, and now it works for the filter. Okay, time to clean things up. As always, things turned out differently than expected. I'm going to show you what I mean. I have the pump out of the car and the pump's working. And now when I move the flaps, the airflow meter flap, I get 12 volt at the back of the car. So what the heck? We'll see. So unbelievable. The only good thing is if I put this back in, I will have my new hose on it, except this. Other than this started to pinch anyway. So that's going to change. And then I'll put it all back in once I've verified that it still works when it's on the car. I do not understand what happened, but that's nothing unusual either. So this is the pump that just came out of the car, and so the pump works. No discussion about that. Based on what I've shown you, I am at this point completely clueless what was going on, why the car was not running. I hope that if I put everything together that it will run, but I am not happy because if I don't know what happened, it can happen again. And that is probably when I'm going to be somewhere far away from home and the car will not start and I will not know why. So let's see, I'm going to put the fuel pump and fuel assembly back in, and then we'll see if the car starts. Now I'm at the point where I do get power at the fuel pump and the fuel pump runs. The explanation was surprisingly easy, and as so often I was just thinking too complicated. What happened was that the connectors at the back are like this, these typical connectors, and the tension here on these little pieces that wrap over wasn't tight enough anymore, so I squeezed them down with pliers, put it back on, and the fuel pump's running now. So I could have saved myself a lot of work by not assuming the worst, as I often do. But anyway, learned something again. I put everything back together and I hope I can start the car. What I got out of it anyway is a fuel pump assembly that I can put on the shelf. I'm going to finish assembling that today once the car is running, and then at least I have that. I'm not sure my problem is solved yet. When I was putting the fuel pump assembly back in, I noticed that I didn't have the normal fuel splashing and everything. Actually, it's it was only drops that came out of the tank. The tank should be half full, unless of course, I don't know, it evaporated, which I have a hard time to believe. So I'm gonna run the fuel pump now, and I should see some fuel pressure here. And I do see some pressure. And it goes to the 3 bar, as it should be. So I don't know why I didn't see any fuel out of the tank, but I do have fuel pressure. Now the car should hopefully start. Fuel pressure was building up pretty slow though. As I said, I normally see fuel pressure go up like this. Okay. So much for now as far as SC356 is concerned. The to-do list got a bit shorter, but there is still a lot to do. First of all, I need to figure out why fuel is trickling out of the tank, and that is not how it is on other cars, but it needs a new fuel sending unit anyway, fuel gauge sending unit, and I have one last one on the shelf. Others are at the moment being developed for reproduction. And then I hope that problem is solved. As I said, normally fuel pressure should come up within a fraction of a second and not take 10-15 seconds to rise. But the car is running. It has a nasty knock that I am concerned about. I don't know how concerned I need to be, but in worst case I have to open the engine. But I'm going to put that on the back burner for now. The next thing I need to do is the car sounds as if somebody has two rubber hammers and drums against the bottom of the car when you drive, and I assume that is the center bearing of the drive shaft, and I still have drive shafts here, so I'm going to put a new one in and see if that solves the problem. I have some sort of a strange metallic, not really screeching sound, but something similar, and I don't know if that's inside the custom exhaust. I still have exhaust systems here, original ones, so I'm going to put an original exhaust system on, see if that takes care of the noise. It's only happening at something like 3,500 RPM, so it's some sort of resonance, I would think. But of course I can't be sure. But so as I said, drive shaft is next, and then the car should start being drivable. Thanks for watching, and I'll go on with 357, 356 and 377.